Hello guys, I'm Super-Ron, welcome back to the G-Unit and welcome to episode 19 of my GBS Zero build, or as it has kind of been known, the Super-Ron wiring channel. In the last episode we got some electricity in there, we got things to light up and we got all the stalks and switches to work. And the last thing we were left to do is we've got the little Savage switches for the fog light, the horn and the hazards to wire into the middle. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get going. And these are the Savage switches that I'm going to be using for the fog light, the horn, and the hazard switch. And these are usually horrendously expensive. These are like 25, 30 pounds each. But I was lucky enough to find someone that had finished their project and they had these left over and they're selling them for £5 each. So I got all three for £15 delivered to my door, which makes it a little bit more affordable and not spending £60 on switches. They're actually made by APEM. And what I've been searching for is the plugs that go on the back, because they've got these little switch blocks and there's a little cutout. So it's like there is some kind of plug that goes on, especially on the hazards, because there's so many wires that need to go on it. The usual thing to do, like people do on the relays, is just put a spade connector on. And although that's not a problem, that holds in, everything's apart, the same problem you have that we talked about with the relays is when you have loads of spades on the back of the relay, it's fine until you want to change the relay or take the dashboard or do something out. You take them off and you've got all these spades, and when you go to put the new one on, you've got no idea what terminal goes to what. You've got just a spider's web of mess. So what we did with the relays is we got these holders which allowed them to just plug straight in. So all the terminals stayed on here, they go straight in, so you couldn't get messed up with what wires go where. It is always like a factory fuse board that clicks in and stays where it needs to be. So I've been searching absolutely everywhere for the plug that goes on this. It's got a little cutout, so it looks like there is something that goes on there. And when I say searching, it's not just a quick browse. I've spent months and months on my night shifts, only on tea breaks, obviously, searching for the correct plug. And it's not just a quick Google search. I've been on Google, eBay, all the electronic sites, the RS Catalogue site, even the APEM site with their part numbers for the switches. And the closest I could find was a socket that goes into a printed circuit board that goes in and you solder to the back of a circuit board, because these can be used with all different faces. So some have a key on, some have a kill switch for machinery, but I could not find a plastic plug that goes on there. So I'm going to have to do it a little bit a different route, because I don't want loads of spades on here, because if I take the dash out, we could have 20 plus spade connectors all just in the middle. So what I'm going to do, I like using these little, they're like the Japanese engine bay switches that go together. I've got several different ones. This is a 4-pin one here. We've got 3 pins and 2 pins. And I like using these. They're waterproof, which is especially good on a kit car because it's open to the elements. They've got the little seals that go in to the holes at the end and the seal inside, so it's completely waterproof. And what my plan is to solder a wire onto each one of these and then crimp the plug onto that. So the plug and the switch will then stay together. So if I ever want to take the dashboard out, all I need to do is this will be connected to the car loom, is unplug it, and this will then come out together. So the other thing you always want to do, you've got 2 choices, whether it's with spade connectors, bullet connectors or proper plugs. They can actually go round each way, but something that you just want to bear in mind is you always want the female on the positive side, because if the plugs ever fall out, you've got this one which is always live, could touch the body, could touch anywhere, but as the female has the terminals right up in there, they can never arc out. Whereas if you've got a male, especially on a spade connector or a bullet, it's completely exposed, and if you have that on the live side, if it touched the body, that can arc out. So that's just a little tip. Always put the female on your live side. So I'm going to be soldering little tabs on each one of this. We did talk about solder not being good in wiring looms, but this is going to be fixed to a point, so it's not something that's going to wiggle or bend or cause any problems. So we're just going to solder a few little wires onto here, onto there, and then this will stay with the loom. So we can unplug the dashboard and take these out together. So they're quite simple switches. This is a twin pole switch for the hazards because you need to keep the left and right indicators separate, because if you just put it on one switch, every time you turn the indicators, everything will flash. So it's a double pole switch. The horn and the fogs are just a normal on-off switch. But with the fog light, a little problem that arose in the past is, in the olden days, you had your headlight switch, you turned your headlights on, that put power to your fog lights, you turned your fog light on, and that would power your fog light. The problem is, when you turn your headlights off, everything will go off. You come out the next day, you turn your lights on again, and your fog light switch is still pressed in. So your fog lights will be on, even not on a foggy day, until you release the switch again. So this became quite a problem on the road. So on the IVA test, and I think even when it was previously the SVA test, they put in a little rule that when you turned your lights off, the fog light had to disengage and not come back on until you turn the lights on and repress the switch. So companies like Cartech make this very easy, and they make a little module that we wired in last week that means the fog light will only come on when you turn the switch. So if the lights go out, you turn your lights back on, the fog light won't come on. And even better, Cartech give you the wiring diagrams for whatever kind of switch you have. So we've got the push button switches, round switches, and luckily at the bottom, we've got the Savage wiring switch that we've got. So knowledge is power, and we've got the wiring diagram. It tells you what pins we need to use. So that's going to make it a lot easier to wire in. And while we're talking on plugs, last week we got the ignition switch. We got this delivery in from 12 volt Planet. And we've got the other side of the plugs to go to the ignition switch. And these will also be used on the light switch as well, so I'll show you them later. But that comes with all the terminals we need. So let's move on to the car. And a little mid-session update. You saw me taking down the notes of how the switches work and how I'm going to wire them up. I've got all the wire colours and what pins I'm going to use. Because like I say, at the end of this, same with the relays and all the wiring of the car, I'm going to make one huge wiring diagram of the whole car with all the pins, the wiring colours, everything that I need. So in the future, if there's ever any problems or if I need to find anything out, it's all noted down and I'll put it in my magic book here. This is the book I put every wiring job I've ever done. So we've got a 2002, I've rewired all the fuse box in it, all meth injection, added relays for the same as the kit car. We needed a relay for the horn switch. This had it for the heated screen, meth injection, and for the lights, like the kit car again, I added a dip beam and the main beam because the original 2002s were just like the original Sierras. They don't have a relay in the lighting circuit. And for the Emerald ECU, speedo, noting everything down, so in the future if we ever needed to look anything up, it's all here. A old 1968 Mustang that I had to rewire because the fuse box melted down, put everything together with all the relays for dip beam and main beam headlights, same I've just done in the kit car, and a horn relay as well. So it's all the same thing like I've done on the older cars, I've done here on the kit car. Borer, I did a flushed wiring loom for the engine bay, rewired the whole engine, hid it all away. So I made notes of all the wire colours just in case I ever needed to know, with the wiring diagram and everything else we needed. The Auto Finesse Mark II Golf, we put an Emerald ECU and rewired the whole car in that. So it's just got all the details of what batteries we use, the turbo, the wideband, where all the relays go and what they do. Just to look back on, there's all the relays for the Emerald, the full Emerald ECU. And we've got another Mark I Golf, put an Emerald ECU in. And I always keep all the wiring and the notes that I use just in case I need to look at it. It's good tips. So we've got all the Emerald ECUs, how I wired in the wideband, what pins they go to. And it's just handy to have all the relay blocks and everything else. So I'll do that once this is all finished. That'll be going in my book. But what I found out is for the horn, I'm going to need 3 terminals. And for the fog, I'm going to need 3. So I can use these really nice little switches we saw at the beginning. and they'll be nice and compact to how it goes together. But for the hazards, we are going to need 6 terminals because we've got to separate the left and right indicators. So I could do that with a 4 and a 2, use the 2 for the illumination, but it's a bit chunky and they'll be a bit not too happy with that. So in this box of sockets that we got for the ignition switch, there is a 6-pin plug. So we could use that for the hazards. And the other advantage with that, with these bigger plugs, they have bigger terminals rather than the little tiny ones that go in these ones. And on the wiring for the hazards, this is where the left and right, or the front and rear for the left and right, join together. So instead of joining these together to one and then put them into the switch with another terminal, we could join these at the socket itself, at the plug, and also we're going to have to split this one up because we need the feed going to left and right. So that'll just make it a bit easier. Instead of having a join up the loom, joining these together and then a single coming to the smaller plug and then moving that around, we can join these in the back of the plug itself and keep it all really neat. The only thing I don't like about these is they're not actually waterproof. Like the small engine bay ones, they've got the rubber seal in there and they've got the seals that go in the top. But these ones, it's what you see, the spade terminals just go in. But these are the kits that GBS and normal kit cars do wire a whole car up with. So they don't seem to have any problems. So I'll tuck it up out the way, but that'll solve that problem. I'll be able to join all the wires in the back of the plug for the hazards. And for the other two, we'll do these nice little ones. So let's start getting the loom plugged up. So I braided each of them, one for the fog, horn and hazards. And what we're going to have 2 switches the same, one for the fog and one for the horn. And you've seen before, I've been using the label maker to put little flags on it. But what it can actually do is if you change the cassette into it, we can make heat shrink labels. So let's have a look at that. So with the label maker, so far we've been using the yellow. If you change this cartridge, you can see this one's a heat shrink. And we've got one in now. So we've got hazards, print. Again, like last time, you do have to chop and waste a little bit each time. But hazards and it's heat shrink. So I'll see if we can do this one-handed. You can put that on and heat shrink that down. And now we are fully labelled. What I have found with this white heat shrink is it does get really mucky easily. So what I've got some clear heat shrink to go over the top of it, which I haven't used before, but we're going to give it a go. So there's the clear slid on and all sealed in. Focus, but happy with that. And labels for the other 2. I have found if you work out what you want and then put them all in one long line for each one, you don't then just have to cut off that bit that's wasted. So print this one. So you still have to cut off the one waste, hopefully. Then we can cut them in half and stick them on. And that's this little mini loom finished. Got the horn, fog, hazards. See, we've put the female side on there, so there's no terminals poking out, so if it ever fell off, your power wires are safe. And the same with the little ones, nothing can arc out. So now, got to do the switch side. So here is one all done. You can see what I mean a bit better now. So we've got this as one complete unit, and the plug is going to go on the end here, and then this will all stay together. And when you want to unplug the dashboard or take the dashboard out, you've just got this one plug here instead of loads of spades on here. But I've come across a massive flaw in my plan why it's not going to work like that. If you've used the Savage switches before, you may have already spotted this. What it is how they mount. So they've got this screw on the back, and I thought this end screwed off because you need a 22mm hole, and the switch block won't go through it this way. So I thought it must unscrew the top and go in from the back through, and then you put the top back on. But that's not the case. What it turns out is you have to take the switch itself off. And that's what this little cutout here, you just put a little screwdriver in, and then you're left with just the illumination terminals, which then allows you to take the nut off all the way, take the spacer off like that, then this goes through your 22mm hole. And assembly is reversal of removal. Put that on, put that back on, and then put your switch back on. So the problem is, if I'd soldered all these together in one loom, like this, I wouldn't be able to take this off to get the switch out. So it wouldn't be a problem. If they're in there to stay there forever, when we remove the dash, we just remove this plug off the end and it all comes out. But if we ever wanted to get the switch out of the panel itself, we wouldn't be able to get it past because this can't come off. So what I've done is, just for the illumination, is I've put two little spade connectors for that. We've got the red and the black because it is an LED, so it does matter what way round they go. So these two are soldered, and on the hazards there's going to be a lot more soldered all the way around the outside. But the illuminations are on little spade connectors, which means you put the screwdriver on the little tab, this comes off together and leaves the illuminations there. You can put it together, put just the two spades together so it's not very confusing, and then we're all good to go. So that's solved that problem. So I've got lots more soldering because there's many terminals in this one, and then we've just got the fog light to do. All the wiring there is ready. So let's make a few more of these. And all finished, and they look fantastic. So you can see now they're all wired into the back of the switches, and then you've just got these three plugs to unplug if you ever want to take the dashboard out. I've made it pretty idiot proof. I used the leftover wire that we cut out of the front half of the loom that was too long, so all the wire colours are the same colour on both sides of the plugs, which makes things a lot more simple. And you might see this as being major over-engineered, whereas a few spade connectors would have done the job. But I know now that I'm not going to have any trouble with this in the future. And I've updated the wiring diagram again, ready for the final edit. So let's get some electricity in these. So I've connected the battery up to the positive. We've got an old horn wired up to the front, and we've got our fog light here. So let's see what works. So first of all, the hazard should work without the ignition on. There's no indicators, but it lights up the telltale. That's working. And then with the ignition on, the indicators should still go left and right. Check. Ignition on, horn should work. Excellent. Lights on. Got illuminations on the hazards and the horn, and the illuminations for the fog light switch is going to be the telltale for the fog light. So let's see if fog light works. And this lights up. Excellent. And check if the car tech is working. So we put that on, put the fog light on a foggy day, go home, turn the lights off, forget about your switch, come out the next day, put your lights on, and it shouldn't come on. Perfect, until you press the switch again. IVA pass. So I think that is all success. I'm really happy with the loom. This is all looking really nice in here with all the braid. So now we've just got to work our way forwards. And you saw me there make a start on braiding the front half of the loom that goes forward to the headlights. So it comes right from the fuse box. I've gone back as far as I can, all braided, coming forwards. These are the ones for the starter motor. This one's for the oil pressure switch. This one's for the headlights, and that's the indicators that are going to be in the nose cone. And we're carrying on working our way forwards, so I've still got to carry on this way. Takes lots of planning because you need to put it on backwards in a sense, because you need to start at one end so everything overlaps, so it looks like it's all one piece. But we've got there, it's all going really well, but I have run out of time today, so I'm going to leave that there. So I almost got all the way around. We've just got this last little section on the other side to do, but I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It looks so much better now. It's just not a spaghetti mess of wires everywhere. It's nice and neat, just like a factory loom. Well, in fact, it's better than a factory loom because it's all in the braid, so it's well protected and it looks fantastic at the same time. So this is all going to sit in here. So all we've got left to do is just braid the other side and then put all the plugs on for the headlights, the indicators, the fan, and the other bits that are going at the front, and that will be the wiring complete. So I'm really pleased with progress this week because we've got all the buttons in and they work. So all the preparation we did with the wiring diagrams, making sure we knew what was going on, has paid off because everything plugged in, pressed the button and everything worked first time. So I'm super duper happy with that. We've got lots going on behind the scenes as well in the G unit. I've got some big news coming up that I'm bursting to tell you, but I'm going to put a video together and make it all as a display in one. So if you're not subscribed already, make sure you subscribe because we've got some exciting things ahead. But until next time, make sure you have fun.